Okay. Hey B.
Hey Ari, what up, what up, what up?
What up? How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
It's officially spring break, but we don't have that anymore since we're
Girl, I don't remember the last time I took a spring break. It's been a hot second.
college.
I
I guess
guess,
college.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like I work at like an education center, so I get the holidays off like Christmas and New Year's, but spring break, summer, I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
But
That
yeah,
that is one of those things you kiss goodbye after college.
I know,
Spring
right?
break.
Right? Unless you're a
'Cause
teacher, and I mean, that's fine too, but it's like, like they were like, "Are you off next week?" I was like, "No, yeah, it's a normal week for me. Maybe a little quieter, but normal." So,
I feel like
anyway,
I think that's one thing that's been interesting about being in my 30s is how so much of your 30s is kissing goodbye to your 20s, to being an adolescent, not in a way that you're getting older, but maybe I think that that's for me something I had to confront, realizing ageism is not something I want to participate in my life, where I feel getting older is a bad thing. I actually am getting better and younger and in my more prime because I'm more aware and I actually have the wherewithal to now do the things I want. However, I think having to let go of that youthful past, like letting go of the idea of spring break, letting go of things that you're just like, this is not my life anymore. I pay bills, I have to work my job, I do everything that I need to do as a law-abiding citizen. And to some degree, being young is almost holding me back the more I embrace the past. Like I almost kind of you have to let it go. Maybe that's just something I've discovered in my 30s, but it's been interesting because I've just really I'm like I guess maybe it's being a millennial thing too. Maybe we're having a little bit of a harder time letting go of being what used to be juvenile or youthful as a kid and growing up.
I mean, I had a similar conversation with my therapist today. I think COVID has changed me in some ways where, while I loved being social and now I still like it, but I've come to find I don't have the energy that I used to in my 20s, and I don't want it. I don't want it back. Like
Yeah,
I don't want to stay out till super late on a weeknight and drink. If it's Friday, cool. Friday, Saturday, we're good. But Monday through Thursday, like I like to do me. As I've gotten older, I'm like, this is no, I like kind of my schedule and my routine of a world. And I'm with you. I'm not afraid of getting older. I don't mind it. It doesn't really bother me. I like getting older. I was just thinking about our time at SFA today and like how unglued I would get at the smallest things and just how tumultuous, which it is for everybody in college. I mean, unless you're just really well adjusted, but just how, as much fun as it was, I would not want to go back and do that again. I just wouldn't. I'm like, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm happy for the experiences we had in our 20s, but
yeah.
they've been
Well,
filed away.
no, I agree, and I think it's interesting that you say that because just to announce ourselves to all our viewers, hello, I'm
Yes. Hello.
B, and this is Audie, and you're tuning in for Perspectives, and our conversation has already begun about what it is to be young, and I think it's actually a great way for us to let you know, viewers, what our today's topic is going to be about. We're going to be talking about West Side Story, both the new 2021 version that came out directed by Spielberg and the original film that came out in 1961. And believe me, I'm pretty sure the fact that our conversation's already led there, those movies have so much to do about being young. And we both have rewatched these films recently in lieu of being able to be ready to have this discussion to unpack comparing these two, but also our love for West Side Story, which is another reason why we decided now is the time to talk about it. But it's interesting that you bring it up and about being young and having to put it away because believe me, that's what I kept watching in both versions. I was like, man, I'm not a kid anymore. And though I used to love the melodrama of the story, I still appreciate it artistically. part of what I think made me love this movie was how much I didn't realize I was so young and naive, and what their romance is very, very silly. It
In 2
happens over the
days.
span
What,
two
like 2
days.
days? I mean, well, in college, for all of our listeners, I don't know. We college is a time when Brandon and I really truly bonded over this movie because I don't think I saw it before college, before I met you and Shay and Xavier and Nash. Like, it was in our staple, it was in our rotation. We would try to emulate the choreography to Cool. We would randomly do the run and the snap. Sometimes to this day, if I see Shay, we still do it. Um, Fun fact, I have auditioned for the show. I auditioned for it a couple of years ago. I knew good and well walking in there, I'm probably not going to get this, but it was the most rewarding experience because it was like taking a workshop. I was like,
Mm,
this is so out of my realm, and just there's such a specific type for that show. I mean, and we'll get into that.
exactly.
But either way, that's kind of that was like my second experience with it on the other side of it. And we learned the choreography to Cool. And it was a lot of fun and I still remember it. And it was a weird out of body experience. I remember the audition was packed and I wore a leotard and a dance skirt that was too tight. I just was like, I need to try to look like girlish, but like still in the I don't know. I still don't know what to wear to dance auditions, but that's a whole other thing. So it was really packed. It was hot. It was in a small gym. And when they were teaching us the combination, for the love of God, I could not get it. I was like,
Ooh.
I don't know how to do this. This is hard. I'm in character shoes. I just couldn't do it. I was like, okay, well, I can't leave. So we're just gonna stay and we'll figure this out. So they split us into groups. And like when one group was going, the other group would just be in the back. And luckily, I wasn't until the second group. So I got to watch the first group. And for some reason, something must have clicked. Because when it was my turn, I got it. I was like, oh, I'm doing it. I was like, oh God, what? I don't know what's happening. I remember like all, and I was just like, and that was enough for me. 'Cause it was one of those rare kind of like this. I was like, Audie, this is probably never going to happen again. So just enjoy it now. And it was fun. And it was a great production. A theater in town called 80 Players did it.
Mm,
The only complaint I had was there were not a lot of locals in it, but in their defense, finding that caliber of dancer who could do Jerome Robbins choreography, like you got to search pretty far to get it. And they did. But it was worth it because it was a great production. And I had never seen it on stage before. Because, correct, do you feel like it's not done very much? Because it's a hard show to do.
to do
That's
it
a hard,
traditionally, yeah, I think
that's a
as a
hard
show,
show.
and it's actually something I want to bring up, but we'll get into it when we get to the discussion. But the show is like a ballet,
Yes.
and there's different versions of it, and this new version is like the postmodern realist version of it, and it makes some bold choices, and we will tell you, listeners and viewers, how we feel about that in a little bit. But I could tell you this: I think to do it right, you almost kind of have to go to the Jerome's Robbins choreography, because
Oh,
it's like a ballet. Like when you do a traditional Nutcracker or a traditional Swan Lake, you go back to the original choreography because it's like the sheet music. It is the bones to the actual show, and when you disregard it, and this is something I want to discuss when we get into the real topics of the comparing the two shows. I think it's what almost kind of for me takes away the enjoyment of the new one, is how much they go against making choices to try to not not trust the choreography. And it's so weird. It's like there's always room for you to create variation, but sometimes you don't have to break the rules. And I feel like by breaking the choreography so much and focusing on trying to dramatize this in a more naturalistic way, in my opinion, is what almost makes me very frustrated with the new West Side Story. But before we get into it, I will share this. The West Side Story is absolutely probably my favorite musical of all time.
Oh
And
god, me too.
I don't say that lightly, because I know as a story and in a post 2020 world, we are so much more into a PC culture that there are people that have been talking, should we even keep telling the story, West Side Story? I totally understand that. I also respect people that do find the story just problematic in general. It is a very big melodrama. It's not, in my opinion, realism. And I think when something is that popular and it's that, it can be that. I mean, we were talking about two young people, he just murdered somebody, they're having sex. There's a lot of controversial topics in it that I can understand why people just think it's maybe not the most wonderful story. But for me, that's not why I love West Side Story. I have always loved West Side Story because of the music, the
Oh,
dancing, the aesthetic. And I think that you can change the story in certain ways. And I'm very excited to tell you some ideas that I had that I think would have worked better for the new version had they changed the story in that way. But I think when you disregard and do not trust the music or the dancing to guide you, it messes it up. I first was introduced to West Side Story as a child in elementary school.
oh,
And I
okay.
remember our music teacher was just showing us dance scenes and music in like fifth grade, and was just showing us what music and dance could look like. And I remember never having seen West Side Story before that, but those images still to this day as a child stuck because they're so iconic. So then I got older, I saw it in middle school, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And West Side Story is one of those films that I always watch as a filmmaker whenever I get lost and I need guidance. It's a guiding light for me, because what I love about it and what I resaw today when I rewatched it, and it's been a while since I rewatched this film. Um, there was a nostalgia because I remembered those moments in college where we would dance cool and we would have fun and we would be over the top. How many bullets, Chino?
Oh
And
my
we would
god.
just
He killed your
love it.
brother! All of it. Yeah.
I got the
Yeah. Oh my
kill
gosh. I
it.
love it. I
I
love it.
loved it because it's not that we did not realize that the movie wasn't over the top, but we were allowed as audience members to enjoy the melodrama. We were allowed to accept that the story wasn't real. That's what makes it beautiful. And I think it's one of the most perfect movies because every time you go back to it, and I saw it today too, it's very hard to sometimes make a movie and make it feel so effortless. That is a film from the get-go. It is like it just knows what it is. The music, the dancing, it informs itself, and I loved it. And it will always be one of my favorite movies of all time. And I'm just so happy to be able to share this conversation with you today because I think there is room to have the Spielberg version in the world, but it does have problems, and I'd like to unpack those problems with you because I think it 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 makes choices that I think hurt the film in the long run from making me personally enjoy it.
Oh yeah. I got home a little late last night. We visited my parents. It was a blast. We get home and I'm like, oh God, I have to watch the original. It's the only way I'm gonna be able to thoughtfully really be engaged in the podcast tomorrow. And I just was kind of like putting it off, and Michael just put it on. It's on HBO Max, and we have a sound bar in our living room with our TV. And I just hear the overture, and I'm like, oh, with the whistle. I can't whistle, unfortunately, otherwise I would do it. But the way it starts with the whistle, the jet whistle, and I just was like, this is why I love this. That overture alone, I almost cried just hearing the overture, just because it's just so beautiful. And the original film is very presentational, and you can tell it had just been a play because the way it's filmed, the way the dance numbers are filmed, it's just one wide shot. Yeah, like I said, like just very you could see all full body choreography, and you could tell they kind of just took what they were doing on stage and just put it in real life in the city, but it didn't try to be too sophisticated in that aspect, but I'm not mad at it. Didn't try to do anything too fancy with the filming, like with the cuts, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I loved the sexiness and the dreaminess of Tony and Maria meeting each other, how she just turns and turns and turns, and then it fades into the dance. And then the dance is going and they see each other and then that magical element, I was like, "This is what makes this film so good," and that's, to me, what is missing completely from the 2021 version, and there are parts that are melodramatic, but it works. It just
Hmm.
owns it, like, it owns to the fact that this is a musical, these are singing and dancing gangsters, but we're gonna just commit to that choice. So, it just always
Yes.
baffles me when people are like, "Why would they do that?" I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you're watching a musical. It's there's gonna be an element of cheese to it whether you want it or not, and it's just like, they just go there and they commit to that choice 100%. And I know people our age who aren't into musical theater, they see the 61 version and they just a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's just so." I mean, Michael, he laughs at the whole opening sequence until the Jet song because he's just like, "Why are they gliding? Why are they prancing?" And I just think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant how they just walk and that whole, like, oh, just I forgot how good it was. It had been a really long time since I had seen it. I think the last time I watched it in full, I mean, I catch it on TV, but it's usually like the very end or whatever. I
Hmm.
saw it at the Houston Symphony with the live orchestrations,
Oh,
and that
wow.
was that was very powerful. I noticed a lot more in it that I hadn't noticed back when we would watch it in school, particularly with the very last scene, but we can get into that.
Yeah. So if you
So,
haven't seen West Side Story, spoiler alert, I mean, it's basically the same story, so it's gonna follow the same ending.
it is.
Um,
But
and
for our viewers who
and
don't know or who've never seen either one, just full disclosure, this is based on Romeo and Juliet. That's pretty
mhm.
much what this musical is. Anyway,
No, it is, and you know what? And let's talk about this ending because I'd rather unpack it really because
oh,
I think that this is where I have the biggest grievance with the new film. I think the biggest problem with the actual movie, and I didn't, I okay, so for everybody to know, I saw this film, the original film, all through my life. The new one, I've seen it twice. I saw it in the movie theaters when it first came out, and I had a big problem with it. I did not enjoy it. It
and
was
you
very
warned me, thank
frustrating.
God.
I did, and I was like sitting in a movie theater for over 2.5 hours, and I was really into it in the beginning, and every minute after that just made me more frustrated and more angry. So I was kind of really pushing myself to force myself to watch the new one again because I didn't want to go into this conversation only having seen it once, which I had seen a few months ago. I wanted to kind of refresh myself. So yesterday I rewatched the new one and I fell more in love with it simply because I wasn't criticizing it as much. I kind of was the shock of some of the choices they made had kind of dulled down.
It's
But I'll tell you
settled,
this, when I rewatched the original today, it made me angry at the new one. And I'll tell you why.
right?
The original earns Tony's death. And when Tony dies, it's tragic, but you don't hate Chino. Chino doesn't shoot him in the back like they do in the original. And
I felt
Chino,
bad for Chino in the original at the end. I've never
yes,
felt that before.
I did too, because I was like, he's at the end of it all, you realize that none of them are making choices. They're all byproducts of this reality, which is these men, as much as they try to be good, they can't stop fighting each other. And I think that this is like something that's really important. If they were going to retell the story, they should have changed the ending. I really believe, not that Tony couldn't have died, Tony could have still died, but then give me something more. Give me a moment when Maria, have her write a letter to her poppy, or does she go back to Puerto Rico? Give me something more because the same ending did not feel earned. When he died, it just felt mean. And it also felt really flat to have them all standing around in this weird way. And then they pick him up. It to me, it kept saying cheesy and not earned and silly. And then she's like walking in this with them behind.
And
And
then
then
you see
all of a sudden,
Valentina, which is really
yes,
weird. Like it just, yeah.
yes.
So I'm glad you said that about Chino because yesterday, in particular, yesterday, rewatching it, I'm totally with you 100%. The ending really got me. So, first of all, that's Natalie. Look, we both know Natalie Wood had no business. Now she would have no business playing Maria. She didn't really back then either, but it was a different time. If you even look at the short list of actresses they considered for Maria, none of them were Latina.
Yeah.
Even Carol Lawrence, I think in the original Broadway production, I don't even think she was. So I think they were looking at like Audrey Hepburn and like it whatever. Like I can accept that reality and know that that's one of the things that the new one does right. Okay, but Natalie Wood is still really good. She's good as Maria. Oof, especially in the end when I mean, she just goes and I mean, it's a little melodramatic, but it works because she commits to it right away from the second like and I didn't realize like when he's looking for her and he sees her and he thinks he's seeing a ghost and they just hug and then you hear the gunshot and just her lashing out on all of them, the way she points the gun, and then there's nothing left to say. And the music that plays when they all just exit slowly, slowly, slowly. And I never realized this before. I was like, oh, the last person you see is Chino. And the cop just puts his hand, like Krupke just puts his hand on his shoulder and Chino just nods like, I know I fucked up. I know I'm going to jail. But you see in his face like how awful he feels too. And even with the whole rumble, it's like they all talk all this shit. And then when two of them die, they're like, oh God. So it's just it kind of just made me see it completely differently. That
Me too. Yeah,
ending.
because you know what? All of them were babies. They were all children. Now,
Oh
granted,
my
here's the
God,
thing.
yes.
The original 1961, I think a lot of these actors were probably in their late 20s, early 30s, maybe even close to 40s, because they
Yeah.
were old. But you know what? I believed all of them
Versus
were
the new one.
supposed versus
Oh,
even though the new one
God.
that actually had baby faces, I believe that they were all in their 20s, and I didn't
Me
actually
too.
believe that they were actually supposed to be these like 19, 18-year olds, maybe 16 or 17. I didn't believe it, but the original, I believe it. Even at the end, when they're looking at their hands and they realize, oh my God, we're just kids with guns. That's all they
Hmm.
were. They were always kids. And that's the thing. They talk a lot of talk. They put up a big fight, but then when push comes to shove, none of them wanted to kill each other. That's why even when Bernardo kills Riff, he realizes he wasn't meant to kill anybody.
You
And
see,
even
no, none of
Tony,
them go to the
yeah,
Rumble with the intent to kill anybody. And then you just see the horror of like, oh no, like you see it in Chino and Tony and Bernardo. Yeah.
yeah,
You're exactly right. And I never know, but I never noticed that until watching it last night. I don't know
totally.
if the
Because
new
I
one kind of made me look at it differently. I don't know.
I do think the new one helped. I won't lie. I think to get to this new perspective of watching the original one, I am glad I saw the new one because I do think that the new one offers a different perspective. And we are a podcast called Perspectives. And if there's anything that I've learned to appreciate, whether I loved it as an audience member, I can always appreciate a bold perspective. And I do think that the new one, when I did see it, it only actually made the original better. So in that sense, I will give Steven Spielberg and his team a thumbs up because at least they made something that I didn't realize until when I rewatched the original after watching the new one, how much more it made me love the original because it actually, though the new one, I think what works for the new one, and this is just to be quite honest, is Spielberg is a great director. He really is. He knows how to shoot stuff and he knows how to make things feel very authentically real. I mean, even one of my favorite films of all time is E.T. E.T. is a melodrama in its own self. E.T. is a sci-fi. It's about a little puppet alien that comes down to the earth. But what makes E.T. so magical is you believe that these kids discovered this alien. You believe in the world, even though you know it's over the top and somewhat make-believe. Deep down in your heart, you believe it because it's all about make-believe. And I think that the problem that I found with the new one was really the script. I
Oh,
think it
the,
started,
the
the
script was
script was bad.
not.
I think the
Ooh.
script is where it goes real wrong because I think had Spielberg had a different script, perhaps Spielberg would have maybe been able to color it because I do think that there's some interesting casting choices. I do appreciate that he really cast people of color in
Me
these
too.
roles. I
Me
do
too.
appreciate the colors that he used. I appreciate some of the shots like even when Tony and Maria see each other in the new one, though it's not as iconic as the original, I actually love the colors in the background. I
Mhm.
enjoyed the fact that he knew, like the very opening scene. It's not. It has this really cool, these like these crane shots, or we're flying over Lincoln Square, and then we have this like jib shot where we're going down this wrecking ball. I mean, he can do things with camera that it is so cool. But
Mhm.
it made it evident when I saw the original today. I was like, wow. What kills this movie from being good, the new one, is the script. Because what happened is he didn't trust the music. He trusted his
No.
ideas, and his ideas turned it into a really boring play with musical acts.
With too many, like, too much telling, too much backstory, too
Yes.
I don't give a shit that Tony like, the whole monologue he goes into about the pa I'm like, I don't care, and then the whole, like, "Man, Grisella really wants to see you." I was like, first of all, everybody knows Grisella is Riff's girl in the original. I don't care, and look, I'll do okay, let me just Rita Moreno is fucking brilliant as Anita in the original. She kills it. She's funny, she's spunky, like, from the second she comes on. Valentina did not work for Audie. Doc does. I think Doc is a great character in the original, and he's a sad character. Like, I was like, "This is sad because it's sad for him to kinda see this world going on around him, and when he yells at the kids, and he's like, "When do y'all ever stop?" And when he slaps Tony, like and whereas Valentina's just like I heard a reviewer first of and also I've done, like, an embarrassing amount of research on both and the 2009 revival and the 1980 like, yeah, and one of the things that a reviewer said that I was on this podcast I was listening to, Pop Culture Happy Hour, that Valentina just, like, spends most of the movie just looking gazingly at Tony, and it's kinda it's weird, and it doesn't really work, um, and she
They forced her
her
in too much.
her singing just oy I mean, oh,
Oh,
oh my god, I was so mad. But here's one thing that the new one does get right, that the original does not. A Boy Like That. It doesn't work in the original as well because you can tell Rita Moreno is dubbed big time. And I was like,
that's so interesting. I never saw it that way until I watched it too today, and I thought that I
yeah.
was like,
When
wow,
the
this
minute
isn't
she
as
sang, I was like,
effective.
"Ooh," I was like, "Your voice just dropped like 2 octaves." And Rita Moreno, I've heard her talk about it. She says she hated how it ended up sounding, but she couldn't hit the notes. I think it was too low for her, to one of the 2. And it's a great song, and just knowing that none of them are singing, neither Rita Moreno or Natalie Wood, it already that does it just doesn't work. And there's no dancing in it, so that can't back it up. It doesn't work. That's the only criticism I have of the original, but in the new one, it works very nicely. The slap,
I Yeah.
it does, it really does. So that was nice to see. And then in the 2009 revival, it's in Spanish. It's Un Hombre Así, and Karen Olivio sings it, and it sounds kind of interesting in Spanish. It's just, um, I don't know that it's a choice I would keep, and I don't think they did. I think they ended up in the revival going back to English, but I thought that was interesting that they decided to sing that one and then I Feel Pretty in Spanish. But yeah,
You know,
I will say, yeah,
I want to add this because it's interesting that you're saying this about the Spanish version, because I know that's the Lin Manuel version. I think he
yes, it
like wrote
is.
the Spanish lyrics for it,
Me siento
and
hermosa. Yeah, it's another one.
you and I like Lin Manuel. I have my I've met him a couple times in life, and he has always been a really interesting person. So I'm going to say this because I don't think he was. I think at the end of the day, when he did it, it was just a job. This is a guy that was obviously just trying to do work, and somebody that wants to revive West Side Story, and it's like, oh, you know what's hot? Let's get the hot Latino guy that can come and turn it in Spanish. That's fine. But you know what? And this is on Spielberg, and this is on that version. I'm okay as a Latino, and maybe you'll agree with me. I don't really need other people, especially white people, apologizing for a movie that I had nothing to do with.
Thank you.
It wasn't made by Latino people. It was made by 4 gay men. That's who it was. 4 gay Jewish men. That's who it was for, and I love it. That's why
Me
when I
too.
watched the original and I prefer it, is because they're not apologizing. They're not apologizing for the movie that they made. They shouldn't have ever apologized. I don't care that they, are melodramatic. I love it. I don't care that they had to dub people's voices. I love it because you know what? It was the movie that they had to make. And I would say this, the reason why that movie will always be better than any other version is because they didn't apologize. They just made the movie that they could make, and it was the best thing. And even though they may never have the most gorgeous shots like Spielberg shots could be, it doesn't matter. Okay, yeah, the new Mambo scene in the new one looks really cool in the way it's shot. I prefer the fact that they shot that in the studio in the original in a room with just four walls
And
and
you
some
could see
lights,
all of the
and
dancing, all of it,
you can
all of it, all of
because
it, all of it.
because you know what? Every time I was watching the original one, I believe that these people lived in this world. Maybe it's not the real New York City, but I believe that the world, even though it was magical and somewhat pop culture in the sense that it's got like a pop art vibe to it and the technicolors and all the vibes. I love that the world that they lived in felt real. This new one, here's the reason why I had the biggest problem. And I noticed it when I saw it again this time from the get go, once they start walking around singing in the new one, my brain can't stop asking, what fucking world are you in? What world are you in where these people are walking by you are not going to call you some crazy ass people coming around pirouetting and being like, ooh, ooh, like I couldn't believe it because the world felt so real. It was so
Forced.
beautifully captured that when they're dancing, I was like, this isn't real. But you know what? I didn't even realize that they were dancing in the original for probably the first 15 minutes when I rewatched. I forgot that they were dancing. And then I was like, oh my God, they're dancing. Duh. I was like, because I believed it. I didn't care. Like there was something in the original that allows you that it's that overture. You sit there and you're forced to have
That
to watch
sets
that
the
overture.
entire
And
tone. That sets the
it
entire
does.
tone.
It sets the tone and it tells you you are in a musical. So whether you care to believe us or not, for the 2.5 hours, these people sing. And they sing to each other or they sing in their inner monologues, but we don't worry about it because it's a musical and it's magical and it's all magic. The new one, I hated when he started singing to Valentina. He's saying, what was it? He after Riff comes up to him and asks him to go to the dance, and he tells Riff to leave, and Valentina's like, oh, you need to pay for that. And he's like, put it on my tab, and then Riff leaves, and then Tony starts singing the song, uh, "Who Knows," da,
Oh
da, da, da,
yeah.
da.
Oh,
And
something's coming. Something's coming.
something's coming. That is a song he does not need to sing to Valentina. It actually
Takes away from
ruins
it.
that song. It takes a It's beautiful when he's singing it to himself. He's imagining, he's telling the audience, I'm dreaming. We're all dreaming. And I think that that's probably the reason why I think the new script failed is because they kept trying to force Valentina into the movie. Like
It was so weird. I was like,
we all cared that Rita Moreno played the original Anita. It is wonderful that she was an executive producer. It's wonderful that she was able to help pass the baton. Her character did not need to add any more value. There was nothing you could add to it. Doc is not a main character.
no,
Doc is
he's
a
a small but
subtextual character.
effective, small and very effective. And
Yes,
I saw how sad and exhausted he was just watching it last night. But he knows that these are kids and he kind of gives them a little hub to hang out in and is genuinely trying to help Tony. But in the original, Tony's monologue leading up to who know or something's coming is every night I'm reaching out. Riff goes to what? He goes, I don't know. So it kind of sets it up to be yes, it is to him. And Justin Peck's choreography isn't very memorable because I don't remember any of the dancing in the new one. I don't remember any of it. In
no,
America, I don't remember any. I don't remember any of America. None of it. None of
me
it. And
neither.
that should have been the sole focus of that should have been Anita, and it's not. Well, to me, it should have been. Look, I understand that the remake could not be a shot for shot. Okay, I get it. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, and what does not work for me either is this merging too much reality and then trying to keep the magic, and it just kept clashing. And it's like you said, they were over apologizing. And with Spielberg, I'm like, who the fuck are you to apologize to us? Like, you've never directed a
Yes.
musical before. You don't like and it's like he's really trying to like, I went to Puerto Rico and like interviewed people. Did you read that? Like all this extensive research he did. I'm like, Sondheim didn't do that. Arthur Laments didn't do that. Jerome Robbins, like none of them did that. It's just like you said, they were just and it's, I think that goes back to the world we're living in right now. And the culture is a little more PC, which is fine in some ways. But in this one, it's like, for me, I'm like, yeah, I didn't need it.
Good art
This
should
is
not
this is
have
a
to
remake I did
apologize.
not. No, this is a remake I did not need. I just didn't need it.
No, I didn't either.
And I'm okay with
I
that. I don't like anyone who asks me, I'll tell them. Be like, yeah, it was fine. I don't think
I
it's yeah.
I don't see myself going back to it again.
No, me neither.
The
And
new
I
one.
saw it. You luckily, so for our viewers, like Brandon told me, I really wanted. Okay, the teaser trailer came out. You remember it came out a long time ago. Remember it was like during yeah some award show. Like they leaked it, and I remember I got teary eyed. I was like, oh my god, West Side Story, they're gonna remake it. Da, 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 da. And then I talked to you. You tell me you see it, and you're like, Audie, they make some changes, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? When you said that what they did with Cool, I was like, "Oh, I'm not going." I was like, I'm not going." Cool is even if you don't like musicals, that dance number, you can't beat it. You can't. The intensity, the energy, the this whole, like, tension, and the fact that I wrote his name down, Tucker Smith, the tall guy who kinda takes second in command to Rip, who is a beautiful dancer. You watch him anytime
Beautiful.
he's on screen, gorgeous, and he's so tall and again, he
He's a
looks
good
a
looking
lot.
man too.
Oh god, yeah, absolutely. And the girls in Cool, and I was bummed they didn't get that opportunity in the remake. Like Grisella and then the other 2 Jet girls, oof. I mean, I go to them every time I'm watching that number. So for him to have the audacity to take that out or to make it into this weird gunfight, I was just like, "Oh, no, 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 no. If that's how it's gonna be, I'm not." That informed my decision to not see it. I was like, "When it's streaming, I will gladly watch it." And then when we talked about doing this and it came out on HBO Max, I was like, "Okay, I gotta watch it." And I was very critical the entire time. I was just very like and then with Ariana DeBose, I kept waiting. I was like, "Okay, where's her nomination? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?" Third act came, I was like, "There it is." A boy like that, I was like, "Okay, there you go. That earned you your nod." From then on, like the third act is when she reached it for me. Because before that, I was like, they and I don't think it's her fault. I think it's just how it's shot. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Because just watching Rita Moreno, like she's funny, she's spunky, yeah, it just I don't know. Watching Ariana DeBose, I don't know, compared to Rita Moreno. Look, okay, we can't compare the two, but I don't think it's Ariana DeBose's fault per se. I think it's just how the movie was shot. Like I was missing something from Anita, like that.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna jump in because I agree. I think here's the weird thing: the new film makes the movie actually about Anita. Weirdly enough, because there's Anita becomes much bigger in this new version in the sense that she's got some more scenes to have and she has a lot more screen time in a way, but then on the same time, because they have Rita Moreno playing Valentina, the movie can't stop informing you, the audience, that we're acknowledging that because Marita Moreno is so famous and because of Ariana DeBose being herself, that it becomes really about her in some weird way retroactively, even though it's supposed to be about Tony and Maria's love. I just don't care about them at the end of it all. And I will say this though, the scene when Ariana DeBose, when her Anita gets attacked and you see the hate in her eyes.
Mhm.
I will say this, the same feeling that we had in the original with the guys realizing that they're children with guns or stones. I do think Ariana gives this performance in that moment when she makes the choice, and you can see her really making the choice that she don't care whether Tony lives or not anymore in that moment. you can see the fact that she has hate. And it's almost so weird. She almost steals the line from Maria at the end, who actually says, "Now I have
Now I
hate."
have
But
hate.
Ariana doesn't even have to say it; her eyes say it. And I thought that to me was so compelling because we can't forget. I mean, in the original one, you feel bad for Anita. You just feel bad. You're like, wow, and you feel painful in some ways that she's just so hurt that she can't tell the truth. But you almost can understand it. You almost understand everybody. I think that that's what's so original about the original one is that's universal. I understand every character's choice.
Oh
In the
yeah,
new one, though, even though I understood what Anita was doing, it just hurt because you're like, wow, she's never going to get a chance to be. She literally, when she's singing what's it called, America, she's trying to tell them that she wants to have the dream here. And then you see in that last scene, her American dream is destroyed. She's probably going to go back to Puerto Rico. She's
probably.
done. She's done with it all. She has no love for America, and you see that hate. You see how easy it is, and I do think it's painful, but it also sets in tone what this type of story is in the new one, which is it's always going to be this tragedy, and I guess that's okay. I guess I get that that's the point. But I felt like in 2021, now 2022, I just wanted something more. I wanted something more because even if they had kept the same ending, the fact that they took out cool and they turned it into this
Mm,
gun chasing pantomime, that took away more fun from the story. Or the fact that I feel pretty happens after they kill each other, which that should not
that's
have happened.
actually well, but that's how it is on the stage version because I researched that too.
I
But
know,
on
and I
stage, that choice makes sense because the audience leaves just seeing two dead bodies on stage, and then Maria doesn't. We don't like, but in film we can see like, okay, well, so yes, you're right. Yes.
and I think, but I think the thing is that I feel pretty even the way they shot it in gimbals. I didn't care for it to
Oh, I
be
didn't
in
like it
this
either. It's too
department
busy.
store.
Too busy.
It's just she works with because here's the thing, and this is something I noticed in that scene. Maria, after she has it with all the girls that she works with at the sewing shop, she goes into the front of the store and her and Anita are talking. With removing Anita where she doesn't work at Gimbals, it removes the moment that Anita finds out about Tony before everybody else. And when Anita sees Tony show up at the store,
Mhm.
it gives you more payment for the pain that she feels at the end to justify it. In this new version, they make Anita the villain in a way. They make her the villain because even though she's hurt, she's so hateful that her hate is bigger than her letting herself be able to walk away and not hurt the one that she was trying to take care of, which was Maria. And
How,
in some ways, it doesn't. I know it. It's weird. I guess the way I'm trying to explain it is this: they're about to rape her, and we know that
yeah.
that's absolutely wrong, and she has every right to be angry about it. But she almost in because of this new version, she really doesn't have any emotional stakes in whether or not Maria and Tony get together because we never see her make choices to other than the one time when she leaves Maria's apartment, she leaves the apartment to go to Valentina's store. In the original one, you see her make a choice in the original to hide Tony and Maria.
Yeah,
And
that's
because
true.
she makes that choice, when she makes the reversal, it makes her, it makes the pain hurt. But you could see
It's
that it
it's
wasn't
it's
like she didn't,
hurtful.
it was hurtful, but you can interpret it. In this one, it just makes her, it just makes her come off like, well, fuck you all. I don't
That's
care anymore.
true. That's
And
true.
and I think that though it's wonderful, it leans more into the hate. All I get by the end of it is hate, hate, hate. The original wasn't about hate. The original was about that. It's the tragedy of hate, but
Mhm.
we have to persevere. When Maria stands up at the end and she's got the scarf over her and she walks forward with the black, whether or not she's gonna be the same isn't the point. She survives and she lives and she moves on. At the end of this
Oh
new one, I
yeah.
was like, the end of this new one, they're like in destroyed rubble. They're all sad. No one's gonna remember them. No one's gonna care for them. It was just sad. It was too rough too. The fighting in the original in the new one is so it's not about it felt like Gangs of New York, but with dancers. That opening scene when they're fighting in the rumble and he puts a freaking nail in his earlobe. I was like, I
Oh
don't
yeah, that was
need
really
this.
weird. I was like, that's so, and then like Corey Brian, what's his last name? Brian Darcy James and
Yes,
Corey
and
Stoll
Corey
coming in
Stoll.
as like these wise ass, like Jersey, Long Island kind of crooked cops was weird. Like it was no, that's a really interesting perspective because watching the rape scene last night in the original, her eyes say everything when she looks and she's like, tell Tony Chino killed it. Like it's
She's not even thinking about what she's saying. She's just reacting
no,
because
she's
she's so in
reacting
pain.
to what just happened to her. And
Exactly.
she's not
She
even too
doesn't
aggressive when they're trying to rape her. She's like, please just stop. Like, she's just genuinely trying to get away. And they play America, which I never got before. And I was like, ooh, that makes it even worse. And it goes by pretty quickly, but it's just, yeah, she just makes, you're exactly right. She's just reacting to what was said. And, but she
in this new
still
one,
is
she's making
going
the
to help them.
choice to
Yeah.
hurt them. In the new one,
Yeah.
she's making the choice. She can see it in her face. She's just saying, screw you all. I don't care. I don't care about Maria. I don't care about anybody. And she walks out and it's a stronger choice in a way, but I think it makes these characters less childlike. And I think that that's the thing. This new one's not Romeo and Juliet, and that's this new one is Gangs of New York. This new
Mhm.
one is a modern movie, and it forgets its source material. It forgets that the reason why we keep telling Romeo and Juliet over and over again every generation is because every one of us realizes when you get older, and this is what we've been talking about at the beginning, how naive you are as a child. And I think the new one forgot the youthfulness. I was watching the trailer on HBO Max for the original one, and it was so interesting. You should go back and watch the trailer if you haven't seen
Oh,
it on HBO
okay.
Max.
Yeah.
But in the tagline in the trailer, they keep saying, "This is the movie West Side Story that always gets younger. It keeps getting younger. You have to see it. West Side Story, the movie that gets younger." And it's because even in the trailer, they knew what they were making. They
Yeah,
were
that's true.
making a young, naive love story about young people that are caught up in a world that they don't understand, that they can't understand. And it's only a matter of time before they become victims to society. When Officer Krupke puts his arm on the shoulder of Chino, Chino's not a murderer. Chino's a
No.
byproduct of the system.
Mhm.
Chino is, and to me, those four gay Jewish men were saying something deeper about society than what the new one is. The new one, I actually hate Chino the most. I
Oh
hate what
god,
they do
he's
with
so
Chino.
annoying. He's an
He's
accountant.
annoying,
Blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
and then they turn him into a cold-blooded killer like he was in some type of Scorsese movie. When
Mhm.
Chino is just, if we want to make a bigger comment on society, it's actually sad how many people of color, especially men, are just byproducts of a system that wants them to turn themselves into killers. And it's sad that all the white guys get to walk away and the one Latino guy has to go to jail when all of them were a
All of
big
them
part of this.
participated. And she
All
Maria
of them.
even says it. She's like she was like, "Y'all killed my brother, Tony, and Riff." And the fact that she acknowledges Riff too,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was so powerful. I was like, "Oh, even like her, she even acknowledges that because it's important." And you're exactly because that and you're so right, that Chino moment at the end, and even Officer Krupke knows. That's the difference in the old version is that the officers know that they are products of their environment and the
Yeah.
system. Where in the new one, it's like they're just like, "Ugh," like kind of like clownish and buffoonish, which I don't think worked. Um,
No.
And you're right, like, they in the original, they do all move on. Are they gonna all be best friends? No, but they're gonna go forward, and I even thought, I was like, "You know what? Chino's gonna be okay." Like, for I was like, "He's gonna be okay." It's just like
They're
all I
all
could
gonna
think
be
about.
okay
So I was
because
like, "Man."
they're all gonna be okay, and that's why I kept saying, I was like, if you are gonna rewrite this story, then you needed to show us Maria being okay. That's what we needed to see. Maybe
Mhm.
she's pregnant. I know that this maybe would have been like
Maybe
a
she's
little bit of a contrivance, but
maybe she's
she did
pregnant,
just
Brandon.
maybe she had because she had sex with him, straight up had sex with him, and I was just like, they could have straight up shown it a year later, and she had a
God.
baby walking down the street and she's pregnant. I something that would have said there's more to the story than just watching Tony get shot. Because I think they said everything that you could possibly say with this movie in the original. And that's the reason why, if you're going to come for the queen or the king, you best be able to give something that's going to be able to give it more. And nobody needed another sillier version of West Side Story, because I think that that's what we've been talking about. It's just, it's not needed because they didn't add anything that added value to it outside of
No.
it looked pretty. And I do think that having people of color, I like the girl that they got to play Maria. I thought she did a fine
Rachel
job.
Zegler, she's very
Yes,
good.
yeah,
She's kind of annoying in real life. Like, she's young. She's
that Twitter
young and
feed of
she's had
hers,
this amazing huh?
her Twitter feed
Oh
is a
my god.
little
Oh, I can't.
all of
I'm kinda from what I've seen, I'm like, "Oh, you're, like, really into, like, social media," and I bet you I was like, "You're gonna end up saying something stupid one of these days, and you're gonna have to go back and read." She already did once. She,
yeah.
before all the allegations about Homeboy, what is his name? Ansel? Something, whatever.
Ansel
She had
Elgort.
yes, when they wrapped filming, she had, like, tweeted, like, "Oh, mi amor, happy wrap, like, it was so easy to fall in love with you," and, like, he had a girlfriend, so they were like, "Oh, who is this?" Like, and so she took it down. I was like, "Girl, you're gonna get your ass in trouble." But she's lived, like, this Cinderella story. She is she's just naturally talented. She did all these things in Jersey, like, at, like, this high school, like, that did musical theater, and she was nominated for some, like, the equivalent of what the Tommy Tune Awards are, like, the Tony Awards for high school, and, um, she responded and she had played Maria on stage. She responds to this open casting call that Steven Spielberg posts. She sang "Me siento hermosa," I feel pretty. She did the Spanish version, and I think the whole process took a couple of years, and then she got it. So it's great, and I think she does a lovely, lovely job. She's just young. So I'm curious to see, like, she's got the face of an ingenue, and she's playing Snow White in the new live action Snow White and the Seven
Yeah,
Dwarfs. So right now she's like in her princess age, little ingenue princess. So I'm like, let's see what the next couple of years bring. Um, yeah, I don't wanna look at her. I think I'd get really annoyed if I had, like, Instagram or Twitter, and so
she's
um,
she's she's perfectly fine in the film, and she
she
does a
does a
good
nice
job. I think
job,
she's
she really
beautiful.
does. She
She does
seems fuck yeah.
the emotional moments. I think she was perfect. I actually, a lot of people who give it Ansel Elgort a
I didn't
lot
mind him.
of.
He was
I
fine.
didn't mind him
He
either.
was fine.
I know he's got his controversy, and I hope whoever's been affected by that, they are able to find whatever truth, or
Mhm,
whether whatever truth is there for anybody that's struggled with those things. Obviously,
absolutely.
you should be able to be heard. But in terms of his performance in the film, I thought he was fine. Is he going
I
to
think
be
so
as great as the
too.
original? Is he going to be as great as the original Tony? No,
But at
but I
least he
do think
sang, and Richard
he
Brimmer
did
did
sing.
not.
Yeah, and he sang very well.
I think so
I was
too.
very he sang very well, and I don't think his acting was bad. One thing, a side note, a friend of mine went to one of the original screenings that they did in New York, um, a private screening where they had the filmmakers and the actors there, and that scene when he's climbing up the side of um, the fire escapes to go to her. He actually, that's him really climbing it up, not even doing
Nice.
stunts. And he wasn't originally supposed to do it. He just improvised it, and Steven Spielberg really liked it. and kept it in. I mean, what he's a tall, strapping man in that
Yeah.
movie. He's big, and I appreciated him for the most part. But I think the issue with the Tony, though, I will say in the film, is that I don't think that the writer knew what to do with Tony.
The original or
I,
the new one?
the new one. I don't
Okay.
think the writer really knew how to make Tony something more than just a nice looking meat stick. And
No,
I
they
think
gave him
that
this whole backstory about him being in prison and all this
it
shit that
adds
no one cares
nothing.
about. No.
No, because and you know what? And this is where I really think the problem of the script happens. They go to the cloisters of all places.
Oh my
So
God,
in
that
the
part.
original one, they have that whole scene in the back of the
Yes.
or in the
The
shop,
dress
and it's
shop.
really cute and it's
It's
pretty, and they're playing with
adorable.
Mama
I
and
used to
Papa.
not like that part when we watched it in school, but yesterday I was like, "Oh, this is kind of sweet." Like
I did too. But then they go and they have these
this
ridiculous long
intense
scenes.
talk.
I know. I was like, this is y'all's first date. What is this? Like, and this is where it becomes issues. Like, in the original, we never seen them on the subway. We didn't need to see them on the subway. The
No.
moment you put them on the subway, it makes me go like, so so when you're on the subway, y'all are in normal land. But then the moment you're in the West Side, you're singing again, singing the jazz. And it
No, that's
didn't,
a good point. It felt like it felt like a fish out of water situation, like this contemporary scene thrown into this like what's supposed to be a musical. And also him trying to learn Spanish. There's a little bit of that, like a phrase or two on the balcony scene in the 1961 version, like or like when he comes in the store and he says buenas noches and Anita's like it's too early for that, say buenas tardes. Little ones just fine. This, oh my god. Let me get out a piece of paper and sit with Valentina and figure out how to say a phrase, okay? Didn't you think if that felt a little forced, some of the Spanish in moments, or was that just me? Because I
no, it
feel like
was,
it was
yeah,
forced. Like this is forced, particularly, and I think I laughed. The post-coital when she like gets up and she's like venga a la cama. I was like, who the fuck says that? I was like, I'm married to a white guy and I have never said that to him before. I was like, this is the stupidest. And like, she was trying so hard to be like sexy and she clearly has no top on. I was like, this just needs to stop. I was like, I'm done. I think at that moment, I was like, that was really forced and weird and unnecessary. And a lot of people complain about his height. I don't really care. I think, unfortunately, in his situation, his allegations of clearly they've overshadowed his because I don't think anyone can see past that because he got like I rarely saw anything good said about him when the movie came out. And then I watched it, I was like, he's not that bad. I was like, but you know who's not great is Riff. I'm sorry. I know everybody loves Riff,
yeah,
but let's just get into it. He's miscast. He the whole time I'm watching the Jets, I'm like, any of these other guys could have played Riff. He just looked like a little punk, like a punk from The Lost Boys or Hook. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
just this skinny little scrawny shit. And Russ Tamblyn has like a sense of masculinity to him and um like that kiddish quality like you were talking about earlier. Like and I don't know what they were trying to do and his eyeliner and the hair. I don't yeah. I
no, I did not like him from the get go. And even when I rewatched him again, I still didn't like him. I I watched the documentary, and Spielberg loved him and really fought to have. I think his name is Mike
maybe I should
Faust.
watch the documentary. Maybe I'll do that.
He really fought to have him in there because he just had seen him in other performances and knew he was a talented dancer. I didn't think he was as any more talented of a dancer than any of the other ones. And here's the thing: Russ Tamblyn is doing flips in
Oh,
the Mambo sequence. He's jumping and doing splits. They didn't give this new riff any of that. I was like, all
well,
he's doing is
go ahead because I have a story
I was
about
like,
that. Go
all
ahead.
they're doing is giving him pirouettes and spins and some fun dance moves. But I was like, there's that sequence where Russ he like rolls back and then jumps and springs up and then does these backflips and twists. That's Riff. Riff is like a gymnast. He needs to be flipping around and because you're right, it's the masculinity. That's the thing. Even though Jerome Robbins was doing some great jazz dancing and adding ballet moves to this, when the Jets are dancing, or when the sharks are dancing, they look more like men. And even in the new one, they tried to act. They were like, "Oh, we're more manly men," but they actually looked more like they were wearing manly men costumes. But underneath, they were all very just trying to play masculinity versus being masculine. The original, those guys at the very beginning, when we're pushing
Acrobatic.
in and we're pushing in right before they start to dance and go, they're sitting in the call in the court and they're just snapping. They look like Coca-Cola ad models.
And it's
And I
fine.
know they're about to, and it's sexy because they're so cool. It's just it's an aesthetic of cool that doesn't have to explain itself. You just inherently know it's cool.
Well, so I watched this half an hour special last night that TCM did about West Side Story, and it was filmed during COVID because it's on Zoom. But Ben Mankiewicz hosted. It's Rita Moreno, Russ Tamblyn, and George. I can't say his last name. Riff from the original. Bernardo from the original. George Takats. I can't say his last name. He's
Takaris.
Greek. Chikaris. Thank you. Who also got an Oscar. And he's so good. Oh, he's great. But Russ Tamblyn, when he was hired, Jerome Robbins was like, "Look, I've seen you in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, Tom Thumb." He goes, "You always flip and do all these acrobats." He goes, "You're not doing that in this. It's going to be straight dancing." When Jerome Robbins was fired because he was taking too damn long, what he would do is he would shoot this whole scene. And he was apparently very hard on the dancers. He'd be like, "That was great, but let's try doing it on the other foot." So the dancers would have to relearn the whole damn thing on the other foot. So he was just taking too long. They fired him. And then and then they were like, "Hey, Russ, we want you to like do some backflips and do all this stuff in the dance." So that's why he ends up doing it, which is great because I'm like, you're right. It kind of makes it. And he also says, Russ Tamblyn was like, if you watch the beginning, he goes, "I don't dance that much." He goes, and if you look, he's like, "I'm kind of orchestrating it, but the guys do more of the dancing." So I think he was, like you said, more of an acrobat type of thing, but he's just so damn good as Riff. And Bernardo in the original is really good. I didn't really care for this one that much. I don't know if that was the actor or just the fact that like there's this whole boxing story. I was like, how old are these people? That's the whole time I was trying to figure out. I was like, how old are they? Where are their parents? Because the parents are indicated in the original one.
The original one, I think they're supposed to be around 18 and 19
Okay.
years old. But then at the same time, in the new one, they talk about them being in school. This is a school function. Because in the
The
original, I
social
thought that they,
experiment? Is that what it is? Yeah, social
yeah,
experiment.
and they said that this is like a school function in the new one. So I think that they're supposed to allude that they're younger, but I don't know. I think it's this wishy-washy, like late 18, 19, early 20s kind of vibe. But in the original one, I didn't question as much. I just assumed that they were young and they were at some like dance function, some type of
Like a
mixer.
community, yeah, like a community event. What did you think of Bernardo in the 2021 version?
The new Bernardo is just okay. You
Yeah,
know,
just
Bernardo,
okay.
he's just okay because they didn't really update his character. They gave
No,
him a
not even
boxer
kind of.
thing. No, I actually think Bernardo, okay, Riff has his issues and he's got his own toxic masculinity, but Bernardo, the new Bernardo, they make him real toxic masculine. They make him real just he's acting like he's the one dominating the home space. And I do like
Yeah,
Anita's line that's just like, no, I pay the rent, she pays the rent, and you pay the rent. And I felt in the original one, even though he was being like a traditional dominating masculine man
they're
in
so
the original one,
playful and affectionate, and it's
yes,
really sweet.
exactly. And you're also just realizing like the reason why they feel like they have to go into this rumble in the original one is because that's just what guys had to do. And it doesn't make it right. It's just it adds to the story that these people are a byproduct of their system. In the new one, you just keep seeing them that they want to fight for no reason. They just want to fight because they're angry, they're mad, and they're upset. And I guess that that's a point, and I guess that's a choice. But it didn't. It just made Bernardo come off as arrogant, frustrated, and it didn't. They didn't. I don't feel like the new one really made the sharks very likable in general.
No, no, at all, at all, at all, at all. Um,
None of the
something about
sharks
the
really.
singing the Puerto Rican anthem, whereas in the original they whistle "My Country 'Tis of Thee," which is a much more interesting choice than
Yeah,
singing the Puerto Rican song, I guess. Oh, yeah, yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
I mean, I think let's. I mean, well, if there's more things we want to bring up, we can. But I feel like let's be real because I think we both have been saying it. I really think the new one's a bad movie. I
I think so
really do.
too. I
I
don't
think it's a
don't think it's good. I don't have any desire to watch it again. I probably won't.
yeah,
Um,
and I think
I'm
it's bad because
disappointed.
keep going.
I was sorry. Um, go ahead.
No, no, you go first. You said you were disappointed.
Yeah, because I was really pulling for it. I was really pulling for it. I wanted so badly to like it, but I already kind of knew I wasn't going to because you told me about the changes. Those changes really irked me. Just hearing about them irked me. And I understand you can't do a shot for shot. He had to put his own spin on it, but the choices he made, it's like he was just overcompensating for the fact that like you didn't really need to do this in the first place. Um,
And it also just felt like, and this is something, and I kind of said it to you before, and I'm okay with admitting it here from one director. I respect Spielberg, I really do, and
oh
I
yeah,
respect Tony Kushner. Tony Kushner wrote, if people
Angels
don't
in
know, he wrote
America.
Angels in America, which is by far one of my favorite plays of all time. Part one, preferably more than part two, but I still love part two. Um, However, though I respect the two of them, both had no business really telling the story. And I'll
No.
tell you why. Spielberg, it's wonderful that he's an amazing director and that he has built the career. What would have been more amazing is had they give this to people of color to tell the story. Had they given a writer who was a
Lin
person of
Manuel.
color,
Sorry.
not even Lin Manuel,
Just
there are
kidding.
tons of other. There
Right.
could have been a woman writer. I would have loved it in the hands of a female Latina writer. I think if
Mhm.
this was in a female Latina's right, like a Latina writer, she would have been able to probably tell a version of this that maybe could have echoed more for Maria and for um, Anita's character. And instead, what I got is the straight male version of this film, and that's
Yeah.
really what it is. I kept watching it, and I was like, this is a straight man's version. And though Tony Kushner, I believe, is a queer writer, in many ways, under the guidance of Spielberg as the director, the vision and the choices that they make are very alienating, especially for somebody who's a Latino male. I did not think that this movie actually made Latino males. I think it
Look
actually
any better.
regressed what it looked like. I do think that the movie, because Ariana DeBose and Rachel Zegler are very strong Latina women, I think the movie had to respect them a little bit more. But I do not think the movie really respected the Latino male very well in this film. And if anything, the reason why I was very frustrated is the ending shot shows a Latino male shooting a white guy in the back, not once, but twice. And
Mhm.
then when he's on the ground, three times. That is a
Oh,
vicious shot. That is a horrific,
dude, in the
vicious
original, it's
shot.
one, and that's it.
It's just one because it wasn't about the hate, but in some ways it just felt personal. It felt like mean, and I was like, you don't realize what you're showing. You're just instilling more of fear of people of color, men of color, having a gun and shooting somebody in the back. And whether you realize that that's an actual egregious image, you put that into the world. And I don't forgive them for that. I can't. When I see that and I saw it again, it upset me, and it's the reason why I hated the movie. It had no business. In the original one, he doesn't shoot them in the back. He's literally Maria's right here, Tony's right here. He's running, and Chino's right here, and he shoots him in the face. Not
Mm.
in the face, but he shoots him on the side in front. He
Yeah.
confronts him in a respectful way. The blocking of having him shoot somebody in the back, not once but twice, is just a very hateful action. It's hateful. Why? I mean, when has anybody who ever shot somebody in the back been known for doing something? Oh, that's a good thing you shot that person in the back. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? How many movies when people get shot in the back? It's a very tragic thing. It just it's also, instead of them cutting baby boy's face, they put a nail in his fucking ear.
That was
You know,
really weird and
in a
unnecessary and
In
Yeah.
America, when the guys are playing with the girls and making fun of them, they're not bursting their bubble and trying to make the women feel stupid for believing in America. In this new one, they're very misogynistic to the women in that whole number.
The fun was taken out of America. That number was not fun at all. It was taken out. There was, especially after watching the 61 version, just how much fun they have and the playfulness and with her skirt and that's just gone. It's gone. There was nothing memorable about that number. And I could say that because I don't remember it. I don't remember the choreography. No, I just remember it starting at the windows and then it jumping around a lot. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
great.
On a
Um,
side note, I do think the whole Spanish subtitles, if he didn't want to put the Spanish in English, I think he should have had the words in Spanish on the. I like to watch movies with subtitles
Me
just because
too.
I like to see the language. I think if he should have at least had the Spanish words on there if he was giving authenticity to the Spanish language, because it would have been nice as just a viewer to actually see what they're saying, because when people are speaking Spanish, they speak very fast. So for a lot of people, it could be very hard to understand even like linguistically what they were saying
I
in
caught
Spanish.
some of it, but some of it I didn't. And Michael made a really good point. That he goes, well, what if they're dubbing this movie in Chinese and then they get to the Spanish part? Do they just stop speaking the Chinese and they go into Spanish? What happens? And I never thought, I was like, that's a good point. Like, and that's another thing that pissed me off. I was like, dude, what right do you have to make that call? Like, what, like, who do you think you are to make that fucking call? Um, yeah, I didn't like it. Just put the damn just do it. No one's You're not gonna offend anybody. Like it turned into this thing. He turned it into a thing, like a way
Yeah,
to pat himself on the back. Like, I'm so good for doing this and respecting these people. And he had no. uh,
he was the Sarah Jessica Parker of this movie.
Oh
He
my
was so
God,
close to it, and it was too much. And I
please
mean, he just didn't let himself. I think
let
he didn't
other
pull
people do
himself
their
out.
job. No,
Yeah,
and he should have.
yeah,
But either way, so I think we're both in agreement that yeah, unfortunately, we didn't need you know, it just the
yeah.
new one. We're really big supporters of the original, and I think the original will always be near and dear to us. And I feel fine about that. And if somebody asks me, I can tell them like, "Hey, didn't love this 2021 version. I accept the problematic it, aspects of the original, but it's just like I said, different time and
Different time.
different time, different place, but it still holds up and it's still timeless.
It
Still,
is. It's that music. That music is timeless. I love it.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that wraps up our conversation for
Yes,
everybody
this was
today on
fun.
our West Side Story. This was a lot of fun.
Oh my
Very
gosh.
good,
Can't wait
good
till next
points.
time.
I know, but stay tuned, everybody, because
Yeah,
we're gonna
we're
give
gonna
you
get
some
there.
new topics. We're gonna be talking about what it is to be in this industry as well as
Mhm.
an actor, as a director. So this is our first episode outside of our and just like that rewatch. So we
Yep.
hope you stay with us. We're gonna be talking about all of our lovely perspectives, and we hope you enjoy the ride.
Yes. Thank you,
All
B.
right, bye.
Bye. Much love.